most people's complaint is I don't know what my realtor's doing. They never talk to me unless it's time to change the price.
We're in a price discovery market. We're trying to figure out where the prices are. I have this asset that you want of buyers for your home. You got to reach out to me for them to consider yours.
Revealing that to prospective buyers might actually be the thing that kind of attracts people to your newsletter, to the way that you're going to get more contact from them.
How do you generate more buyers in a buyer's market?
Show them how to overcome the fear.
Sell their house. It's just flipping the off-market opportunity to the buyer side.
Welcome to The Leads Are Shit, a real estate magazine podcast, and I'm here with Andrew Fogliato. He is the owner of Real Estate Magazine and the founder of Just Sell Homes, a real estate marketing company so that realtors can just sell homes. Realtors like me. My name is Taylor Hack, and I am a real estate team leader and kind of like an industry oddball that bounces around from place to place and meets many of the people that are notable in real estate, including you, because this is an interactive podcast where you can join in. And if you're filing into the studio audience right now, definitely tell us who you are and where you're from, because this is interactive and we would like the interaction.
It's more fun
How you
that
doing,
way.
Andrew?
Pretty good, yeah.
Doing pretty good.
Yeah, got my little I fidget. I got a Bumblebee transformer gift from my son that I'll just be fidgeting with.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
solid. The auto transformer. Um, so if you hear a noise, it should not catch it, but that's what that is.
I'll let you know if it does catch it.
Yeah. But yeah, so we have a plan today because sometimes we come into these and we have no plan. We're like, we are just going to talk sales and marketing because we like it.
And that's part
Today,
of how
we
this
have a
podcast
plan.
began. Before we
Yeah.
started recording episodes and inviting people
Yeah.
in, Andrew and I were essentially taking our own perspectives to try to find out why so many people say that their lead quality is low. And
Yeah.
it turns out that there's missing alignment. But now we're looking at these perspectives like everything has shifted. There's so many markets that have changed. Like, what are you hearing right now? Before we were talking about voice of customer, and
Yeah.
really when it comes from a real estate magazine perspective, like the customers are real estate agents. And then those real
Yeah.
estate agents right now, I see a lot of like concern.
Yeah.
I see a lot of anger at the news. What do you see?
So, I mean, typically the anger at the news, I mean, it's not actually at it's they mean more like the larger news stations. Um, there we actually do get a lot, interestingly, I'd say. I mean, we do get some anger at our coverage. We get a lot of realtors are thankful that we're there to provide their perspective on things, which is interesting too. But yeah, no, it's realtors right now, like just outside of Alberta and like a little bit Saskatchewan. Yeah, everyone's just like volumes down. They're worried. They're not sure when it's going to come back because it's that like, is it the bottom? So like you'll notice view count isn't necessarily above average on these articles, but any article that talks about like we're at the bottom now, we're going to start coming up. The market's coming, anything like that is our highest shared on social. And what that is are the realtors putting it into their stories, putting it into stuff like that, because they want their consumers to feel that confidence. So like when we look at the data, that's the interesting find. It's like finally, like they don't necessarily get more traffic than the average article, but the percent of like how often it's shared on social goes up exponentially. Anything that talks about like the rebounding market.
And it's interesting to hear your perspective on that because obviously, like all news outlets, are essentially need to have some aspect of marketing because
Yeah.
readership is how they survive. But knowing that this is a vehicle for shares, or this is a vehicle for likes, or this is a vehicle that will cue conversations because it's controversial,
Yeah.
those are kind of the inside. And we see that in the general population news as well, where they're like, oh, I talked to 15 people that are afraid. And I know if I printed more about being afraid, that they would basically like consume this.
So even with realtors, you'd have to think about media and what you put out similar to how we do it at REM, which is like there is what's in the news, but then also like, are you beating a dead horse on a specific topic, right? Like I can tell you, negative news will get the most clicks every single time. But I don't like that stuff. And I don't like the perception. It can drive more attention, but it doesn't also like create that same I love REM feeling that you actually want to have. Um, right? Like you want hope. You want highlighting good things in the community. So for us, like highlighting the good things realtors are doing instead of, hey, this agent got sued, this agent got sued, this agent got sued. You want, hey, like, yes, this agent got sued, but like, here's this also person who just raised $1 million for charity,
Mm.
right? Like it's you try to find that balance where it gets tough is sometimes if you're like bombarded with negative news for 3 months in a row, because that's just what the stories are and you have to cover them. You got to find a way to balance that out. And like the same, like when you're like creating content as a realtor and putting messages out there, you also want to think about like how much the tone of what you're putting out there reflects back on the brand, right? Like it's an easy way to get a lot of followers. But a lot of the people on social who are almost entirely negative don't actually get a lot of business from it.
Mm.
And that's a
Yeah,
huge
I imagine
distinction.
it's hard to be energized to contact somebody when they're basically almost telling you not to,
Yeah.
you know? Uh, I'm not sure how the people feel that are in our audience, but a lot of the times where agents feel a lot of stress is the comments that are made to them from their clients that are currently listed with a property that's not catching offers.
No.
I know that when I'm in that situation, I find it irritating, right? And if my market is in a situation where that's pretty common, then how do you explain? Because what you feel coming from that language is what are you doing right now to sell my house?
And that's like I was talking about this recently. Like I know we talked about it before the show too, but it's because I've had this conversation with a lot of people in the last year and a half, is especially in the greater Toronto area and basically all over. You could have been in the industry for 15 years and never really had a down market. Like if you're a 2017 Toronto, there was a couple months, right, where the market did go down for a bit, but that was still even almost just like a blip.
Hmm.
And most people have not experienced, like I was actually talking to someone who in her, I think it was 13 years of selling, had never had a listing that was more than 15 days on the market. So the first time she had a listing that hit a month, she had no idea what to do or how to talk to the clients about it. Because you never had to have a conversation at that point around like manage their expectations. You maybe only have one showing, or like, what are you doing to get more showings and
Hmm.
that type of stuff. Like, it's an interesting challenge that if you've never had it before, because the market's never needed it. So that's the one side. The other interesting one that's just come up as a trend is like our service at Just the Homes where we market listings, more business than ever. And it's because when the market was hot, you would get people who'd be like, "Oh, like, why do I need to advertise it? It's going to sell anyways."
Yeah. Kind of felt like
Like,
advertising drugs, like street drugs.
yeah,
No, no,
yeah,
no. They sell themselves.
selling to a willing buyer at the market price.
Totally.
Yeah, but it's interesting to see how that shifted now. But yeah, like working on how do you kind of keep, because like I talk about this with like our ACE marketing framework. The like how you work with them and provide that service is a core component of getting referrals. And like you can never have your clients wondering what you're like, if your clients ever start thinking of, I don't even think he's doing anything for us, you're toast.
Hmm.
Like unless you come, like if they have that thought, unless you come like the next day with a full price offer, you've probably lost referrals from them,
Absolutely.
right? Like you have to be like, they should always know what you're doing to drive things forward. And that might be just having a difficult conversation with them about lowering the price, but they have to always know what you're doing if it's going to be on the market for a while. And then now you got to set the expectations of what that might look like before. Like before, you could be like, which day would you like to sell your home? And then you're like, all right, Sunday at 7 o'clock by 7:45, I will have a signed contract for hundreds of thousands over asking. right?
And now that that's not happening anymore, it's a tough situation where people feel as though as a seller they had control before, and
Yeah,
now they don't feel like they have any control, and they're looking for that. So you get a lot more, like one, you have to manage the client experience for a longer time. And many of us are not set up to do that. Like I remember when my market started to shift downwards in like 2015 when oil went down. I'm just in this very cyclic market, right?
yeah,
So we've actually seen this. In fact, 7 years of my real estate career was in this situation. Properties were going down each year. People that owned condos, they couldn't sell, so they ended up renting them out after they saved up a down payment to go buy a house for their family. We call them
yeah,
accidental landlords, and I have an entire generation of them.
yeah,
We would go into these market evaluations, and the value proposition had to be different because if like in there wasn't much more than we will get you the most price and it'll happen fast and with certainty. That was kind of the value proposition of the past. And now it's a situation where you're going to have to manage people for longer. You have to make more of your experience into a marathon instead of a sprint. You have to use your marketing budget in different ways. You should be using a price strategy instead of just a price. All of these things have to become the tools that you use to grind through the hard part, right?
yeah.
But
And
it's mhm.
no, go ahead. You
But it
go.
starts with client complaints. And what I mean by that is that most people's complaint is I don't know what my realtor's doing. They
Yeah.
never talk to me unless it's time to change the price. The only thing they ever tell me is to change my price. And I don't understand how this works, so I'm a little bit confused and having trouble trusting my agent.
And what I would do, like the, and I'm thinking of like tactically how to ward this off. And it's an interesting one. I don't know if we talked about it when Ferris was on the show, but I think it was the time before that I interviewed him for sure. It came up. And this is how he combats this is he makes sure that even if it's like his best friend who's just like, no, no, just send me the contract, he still makes them do the listing presentation because in that it sets the expectations of what they're going to be doing so they never have that I don't know what they're doing thing. So it actually starts so much before they're even a client to start like setting that expectation here so that when they do get over here, it's so ingrained in them that they just know what you're doing and what you guys are putting towards it. So like if you're not even starting that process until it's time to do it, you're already behind the eight ball, right? You have to
Mhm.
have that piece there.
So when we go into these listed clients that have been on the market for a while, like Ryan's calling into the chat here and he's saying that he has plans set up for weekly reports. And also we ask how often they would like to hear from us. So that's kind of an interesting way to set it up. I like that. And also creating expectations up front. But
Yeah.
a lot of people, when they're saying like a weekly report, it's tough to say what a valuable weekly report is.
Yeah.
Like I used to send out market evaluations to my clients with a very low response rate and a very low click-through rate. But when I started to make it more bite-sized, we actually now have it where it's an incredibly short email with a couple of clickable links and only like four properties. And man, it's fire. The amount of people that respond, the amount of people that open and click it and don't respond. Like I can tell that I'll settle for a one-way conversation. I don't need them to talk to me until
Yeah.
it's time. But that really worked. So in this case, when we're talking to our clients like once a week, what do they actually want?
Yeah, and that's where I think like because even like just a home site, right? Like when we run ads, which isn't like for a listing, but we're running ads with someone, like what's that cadence? What do they want to know in the report? And we actually like killed a lot of our reports because people weren't even clicking on them until we had to change and like we've had to change the system tons of times over the years. And it's they'd rather just hear the like very quick, here's what we did, but it's the here's what I'm going to be doing. And then you're like, can you layer in your expertise into that? Right? It's the so like if I'm selling the home, like, okay, so here's what we got done last week. Here's what that leaves us. Here's what we're getting this done this week to get your home sold. and just lays it out. But yeah, I'd put like the stats and like for the like people who care about that, I'd link it and have them like go read a report, and I'd keep the email text or bomb video if you prefer. Um, and just like here's what we're getting. It's like the Elon Musk, what'd you do this week? Right? Like that's almost what that email is.
Hmm.
What'd you do this week? Set the expectation for next week. And then your next week's email is, yeah, I accomplished all those things, plus this, and this. Here's what I'm doing this week. And
Yep.
simple.
Yeah, for me, I actually don't talk a lot about actions. I talk a
No.
lot about data. So, my listing update would be a bomb video
Yep.
and a few clickable links below that I'm going to add insight to in the video. So I will say things like, here's the properties that have come new to the market this week, because those are new competitors. I
Yep.
also talk about the properties that have changed in price because a lot of people don't understand how often their competitors are changing in price. And in many of these hot markets, if you've been on the market for long enough and haven't changed anything, like you're no longer relevant to the buyers that are shopping. And
Yep.
so knowing that there's other people that changed in price is important. The other thing that I put in there is recent sales. So these are examples of success that have some commonalities with us. And if we do
Yep.
what they do, we too would be seen by buyers as being a good choice. And then finally, properties that are pending right now.
Yep.
So the properties that recently went pending are kind of the tip of the sword. If your market is moving down, it means that you have less buyers than sellers. And your sellers may not know that they could be on the podium, but second and third place don't get an offer. So being in second place is like really challenging.
And how much do you prep them for this type of talk before they go up, where you're talking to them about like all of like how much of this before these updates do they know about?
Normally, the idea is that I build an experience and then I look to promote it. So I build an experience first, and then when I'm going to go and present it to the next client, then I'm like, okay, here's what to expect and what we do and why we do it as part of the listing presentation.
No. Because like how I would look at that too, like when you're going through all these numbers, could you have that shortened? Because like again, we're trying to keep it as bite-sized as possible by having had a lot of these conversations during that initial like the listing presentation, or like after you've signed before the like the next part, have some of these expectations setting with them, and then you don't have to explain it each email. It's like, here's the stuff. As we remember, we talked about this. So it's like you're just like re-triggering the thought in their mind of that thing you already talked about. So you don't have to
Absolutely.
go in depth every time.
Yep. You have to foreshadow so that they
Yep.
understand. This should also
Yep.
be why you're talking about it. Because some people, like if you just said we are going to list your house and then you're coming back to them weekly, if you're not talking to them about what you're going to talk about, they may not even open and click your stuff.
Yep.
And then the other side of it is that there has to be some principles that we all understand. So we have to understand that buyers are looking for the best juice for squeeze. And if you are not the best juice for squeeze, they will not choose you.
Yep.
So that accuracy point is really key. The other thing is setting an expectation that is not the market's expectation. Like if your market is long days on market, and this is calculated different ways in different places. Like in my market, we talk about average days of all the properties, whether they succeed or fail. Whereas in
Yep.
Ontario, they're talking about average days only on the sold stuff. So the market looks incredibly fast, even though it's not, because there's so many things sitting on the market.
And even that data is not accurate, right? Because like all the cancel relists, like you'd have to manually calculate it all, which is interesting data because like they have access on like, in Toronto, so many agents use, or not agents, consumers use House Sigma. They see a lot of the info. If you can provide stuff they didn't expect around it, that can also be useful to set expectations of like interpreting it the right way as the insider.
Yep. And that's kind of key. That's also why I like to do it by video, because then they get
Yeah.
more of the message, they get tone and inflection, a lot more communication goes through. I also find that we constantly have two decision makers. That's the
Yeah.
most common. So them getting the initial message from you is really key because otherwise it's one person getting your message and then trying to relay it to the other
Yeah.
side. And normally you get more access from the person that wants to move and they happen to be married to someone who doesn't like change. So it's really tough to be able to make that happen from the far end. So
Yeah.
video can be a real asset there. And then the idea is that every seller wants an offer, but if they didn't get an offer, they want feedback. And they also want to know, like, if they're not getting showings, like, is there information you can give me from like the analytics?
Yeah.
So for
Basically,
me,
they
I
want
go,
you to hold their hand and let them know that you got them.
yeah, well, in even more ways than that. Like, if I know that if I have like 350 auto search criteria matches on the Paragon system, I should be
Yeah.
having a cadence of 2 to 3 showings a week.
Yeah.
And if I'm not doing that, then I have to troubleshoot. And what that means is that I'm going to call agents around me and say, "Hey, how's your traffic going?" Like,
Yeah.
and get that exchange going because then if I can tell them that, we are not losing to the competitors around us, but we're pricing with the competitors around us that haven't cracked the code yet, we need to do something that those other people are not doing.
Yeah.
So that's really part of it. But that kind of moves up front to like what your listing presentation is and how you're talking to people. Now, if my market is sliding, I want a listing presentation that protects me and sellers from expired listings.
Yeah.
So some people are like, do whatever you can to get the listing. And it's like, okay,
Not in that market.
if you don't get the listing, that client isn't yours. I agree with that. But if you take the listing and then it doesn't sell, that client isn't yours anyway. But look at
Neither
all
are
the
the
work and money
neighbors.
you had to spend.
Well, you also just lost the neighbors,
That's also a
right?
good
Like
point.
a lot of people don't think about that side of it. Like I've seen this before play out where it's like someone's been on the market for like 6 months and then someone else came on. And even though they literally the person just needed it gone, so they dropped the price so low that of course it was going to move. But then it sold in 4 days. The consumers just called that agent because like, oh no, he sold in 4 days. This guy's been on for 6 months. Of course I'm
Mhm.
going to call the guy, even though it was priced to sell fast.
Well, that is the illusion of days on market.
Yeah.
So imagine that every listing on the market is a team, right? And they're competing in the same game, which is that they're trying to solve the market for the highest amount of money in the most reasonable amount of time.
Yeah.
That's the catalyst point for most sellers. Now, if the average days on market is in the 40s where you are, that just means it takes about 40 days for the average agent to figure it out,
Yeah.
right? Or to compel his clients or their clients to basically do the things that will be consistent enough with the market that they get an offer.
Yeah.
However, it's only that. If it's 40 days, it's because it takes them 40 days to figure it out. If you could figure it out in 4 days, you are the winner. And I know from the outside, it looks like what you were saying, Andrew, which is like, oh, they priced it so low. But if they priced it into a spot where it got offers and you're not getting offers, it's not that they're low, it's that you're high.
Yeah.
Because
Which
it
was
should
the
all be
second part of it.
relative to where the offer happens. That is the action point. And
Yeah.
you may not want to go down to that price, and it might be surprising to you that it was that low. It might be surprising that the market is lower than you think. And
I
when
can tell
there's
that
less
age.
transactions, there's less data, so it can be a little bit tricky to solve.
I was talking to someone who had a high-end listing that just when the rates went up and the market crashed. Um, but they were expecting a sale in like 7 days. And obviously it should have, and then the rates went up, and then it just that was like when it immediately went to like 30, 40, 60, and then it ended up being like 4 months. And yeah, the line that because he's someone who called me and talked to me, the line that actually worked to like calm him down is like the way because he's like, what's going on with the market? And the way I worded it was, we're in a price discovery market. We're trying to figure out where the prices are.
I could understand that.
Yeah.
And that really should be the first part of your listing is to try to discover where offers are.
Yeah.
Like imagine that you could tell a seller, "Hey, listen, you don't have to take the offers, but we got to go find them."
Yeah.
So if we go find the offers and they're lower than you want, then you don't have to sell your house, but you should
Right.
adjust your price
Yeah.
to the point where you become relevant to the market, because otherwise this is all a waste of time.
Yeah. Now I'm curious how you would handle this because you would have definitely handled this during the time the market was lower. And this is a huge one talking to agents in the GTA especially. And by the way, if other people have scenarios they want us to talk about, put them in the chat and we'll cover them. But this one would be like, this house is 800,000. Like that's the market price for this one. They are convinced it's nine.
Hmm.
What do you do?
I like it. So the first thing is that you know how they say the customer is always right? It's not a fact, it's a position. And what I mean by that is let's just assume that the customer is right in this situation for the purpose of this conversation. You know what? Your house is worth $900,000. But unfortunately, the market isn't paying market value right now.
Yeah.
It's a supply and demand thing. Like we can see cars that have MSRP of a certain price and they sell well below that because the market is not paying market value. So in a case where you can manage to accept market value, and one of the big points here, and this is something that Andy mentioned when he was on the podcast, is what are you going to do with the money? So if you're just cashing out to cash out, then I don't know that you should do this. Like, do you sell stocks when they're down?
No.
And if you're cashing out to upgrade, you should definitely do this. Take a beating here because it's a small beating. And if you're going to buy more than you sell, you are, by definition, a buyer. So let's take a beating on this lower price property and then go up market and lay like a total ground pounding. And that way, the savings on the purchase will outweigh the cost of the sale. And putting it as a package like that, because people are not selling one house, they're actually moving their money inside of a real estate.
No.
And so when they do that, yes, they will have disposition costs, and those are serious costs. But if they are positioning it in to buy a house that would normally be out of their price range entirely, but has been affected by the market to bring it in, like this is the play to make. Families that need an extra bedroom, I'm talking to you.
Oh no, like there's always that group that has to move. And it's whoever.
Mm. I love overcoming objections. That's like my favorite.
Yeah.
Because getting people to frame context so that they're positioned to make decisions, it's such an important part of our job.
Yeah.
But in some cases, when you meet these people and they say, "Hey, I need 900 for this $800,000 property," like the truth is that if I could do that, I wouldn't work for the public. I would continue to do that for me over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But the other side of it is that this market might not be for you. Do you want me to call you when the market is for you? Like if this is your number, the market will rebound. Right now, it's not going to do that. You guys could do all the things to sell your house. I could send people by at dinner time 3 times a week to interrupt your life. You could have a sign on your front lawn and it could change nothing. So if you're not going to sell this house, why do you actually need a realtor?
Which is a side note triggered a thought of me that has worked for clients in the past. The would you move for this email? You ever seen this one?
Give it to me again.
You basically send them an email that is everyone has oh, I'd move for that number price. I'm curious, what's your I'd move for that number price? Most people are going to come back with ridiculous numbers. You'd be surprised how often people come back with a number their house is worth more than.
Well, that's because the way that they reference it is often based on like just a couple of reference points that aren't
Yeah.
enough to have a good view.
Yeah.
So they're thinking about their tax assessment. They're thinking about the maybe like a house down the block that sold a few years ago,
No.
but they're also adjusted for their own situation. So if they bought at the peak of the market, they feel like a loser, you know? And so they need a lot in order to overcome that. But if they bought when the market was just warming up, like imagine that we look at this like hockey and they bought in the first period and
Yeah.
now it went all the way up and then at the end it dropped off. Well, technically they're probably still quite a ways up. And
Yeah.
those are the ones you're feeling for, right?
Yeah, like that was actually like when I was like think back to the last sale I made, like I bought it for five something. It went up in 2017 to 1-1 and we ended up selling it 2018 for eight mid eights.
So you're
We're
300,
still
but
up.
there's
Yeah.
so many people that would have looked at that at like 300
I
down.
lost. Yeah. that was the interesting one is how many people are like, oh man. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, my net worth went down 300, but it's paper money.
Hmm. Yeah, well, you weren't going to realize that anyway. Like the days that matter are the day that you buy, the day that you sell, and every day in between is just like where you invite people to gather for dinner.
Yeah. That's it's like that's why net worth is such like a BS stat, right? Like it doesn't matter. It's not real money. Until someone gives it to you, it's not real money. That's how
Yep,
you can say like
absolutely.
I'm worth 10 million, my personal brand is worth that. Deal with it.
So when we take a look at like the listing management side, it's really about keeping the beat
Yeah.
and about executing the plan that you laid out in the market evaluation. So when you do your listing presentation, it should include a strategy that you are then going to execute, and it should be a thought out strategy that would actually work in this market.
Yeah.
Some people are used to talking about like whatever needs to happen in order to get that listing, and man, is that ever dangerous now.
I think in a hot market, that's not, and I still don't like that in a hot market that you like anything it takes to get the listing mentality, but I understand it.
Hmm.
You're got to do the opposite of like, hey, there's all these listings available. Which should I take?
Well, you should have direct filters for the people that actually aren't very well set
Yeah,
up to win in this market.
yeah.
Because taking listings you shouldn't take is the danger. They have carrying costs, they take your attention, and they basically use resources that you could be using to find the next
And is there
person that
enough
actually
equity to pay
can.
you? Is there enough equity to even pay you?
Yeah. But on the other side of that is that why would you partake in people's loss? Like, would you sign up
Yeah.
for a team that you knew was going to lose the next game? No, you should go and find the team that's like in your whole career should be based on finding the people that can win and helping them win. But
Yeah.
you need to be able to see it clearly. And in a buyer's market, who's poised to win?
Buyers.
Buyers. That's why it's their market. And so in that case, where do we take that from here? So if we make a listing presentation that will help you have the right conversations, so the people that shouldn't list don't list, the people that should list with you, then we have to turn to where the strength of the market is and say, how do we attract those buyers? How do we filter them for the buyers that can actually transact and are motivated and have timelines? Like that's
Yeah.
the real key. And it starts with starting the conversations. So as a marketer, I know that one of the tactics that we're working with is creating a newsletter. And you were talking previously about going into like the voice of customer because that's where they are. So that's where you need to go find them.
Yeah.
And if like remember correctly from a buyer's market, buyers are navigating like they're not really worried about missing the one. There's so much out there.
Yeah. That part
So
gets
they're
me.
having a paralysis of options, too many options. And then on the other side, they're really afraid of paying too much. I think
Yeah.
that would probably be one of the hallmarks. And the news is scaring them. So
Yeah. You
they
don't want to
think that
buy
their
and
friends
immediately go
around
down
them,
10%.
yeah, they think their friends around them will think that they're dumb
Yeah.
because they went and took part in real estate.
Yeah. And this is where I think like getting the message across has been effective around like a lot of people look at it purely as an investment vehicle. And so it's just straight return or not, and they're not considering the use that they get out of it. And
Well,
that's
it's
such an
definitely
important
not
part.
just an investment. Like if you want
That's
real estate
yeah.
as an investment, it has to develop an income.
Yeah.
Like they talk to you about how your house is an asset. Well, your principal resident defined as an asset is the bank's asset in most cases.
Yeah.
If your house is entirely paid off, it still doesn't meet the definition of asset because it's not
You still have to
generating
put out money
income.
every year. There's still property taxes. There's still like maintenance. Like, yeah, like there's an asset there, but in the like traditional sense of an asset, it's probably actually more a liability because it's not generating you any income unless you're like running out the basement or starting to get creative like that. But for most people, you got to keep pumping in. And it's like, but you got to get the use out of it. And that's where I think you have to shift that conversation a bit too, right? Like if you're buying a cottage or what do you guys call in Alberta? Camp,
Cabin.
lake house, cabin. It's different everywhere. Um, like if you're buying that, you're most of the time you're not buying that as an investment. Like you can Airbnb and get into that type of thing, but you're buying it purely for the fun. It's like the happiest day in a boat owner's life, the day he buys and the day he sells.
Yeah.
They're money
And
pits.
in between, they just call it a hole in the water in which you sink money.
Yeah, that's crazy. The black hole. Um, but that's the thing, right? It's like people don't like I see this on Twitter where they're talking about, oh, but like look, there hasn't gone up in this one. I'm like, yeah, but they've also lived there
Yeah,
for that
which
whole
means that
time.
they were deferring the expense they would have paid to rent somewhere else.
Yeah.
Hopefully, they're in a position where they're getting appreciation over time.
Yeah.
And it also depends on where you live on how that works. Just like if you were to only look at it like an investment, if you're investing into a major market, you're doing it for appreciation.
No.
Whereas if you're investing into a submarket, that's where the cash flow plays normally are. But you're also not going to get the same appreciation.
No.
So helping people understand that what they think about an investment needs to be reframed, helping them understand the situation at hand is really key. So in that buyer experience, like I do a buyer presentation that is very similar to a selling presentation, and we've done some previews of that in past episodes. And what I'm looking to do is have the right conversations up front to say like, okay, let's talk a little bit more. And I also find that a lot of these conversations that are being had passively are happening inside of showings.
Yeah.
And that means that in order to get the information across, you have to overcome the distraction of the house and they're not like getting all the information. So you can really save yourself a lot of showings by talking to people in advance because they don't want to go and see houses. They don't want to buy it either.
No. It's a waste of time. But now I'm curious because this is where I look at it is if you get a buyer in a market like that, and I know your market right now isn't like that. It's like the marketing opportunity of that buyer is the same as getting a listing in a hot market to generate more business.
Now
So it's
you look
like,
at this in a different perspective, so unpack that.
so when I'm thinking about like the listing multiplier index, where it's like for every listing you get, here's the potential new clients you can get out of it. The
Hmm.
same can apply with buyers, right? Like if buyers is what everyone wants and there's a million choices, how I would approach it with the buyer would be like, all right, tell me where you want to live. Like, what's like, is there a street that you want? Well, let's mail them all a letter. Let me go knock on all their doors. Let me pick up the phone and call every person on that house. Because there's going to be people sitting on the sidelines who aren't moving because they're like, "Ah, I don't want to have to go through the hassle of having this on the market for 6 months and then find somewhere." But if someone knocks on their door being like, my client wants your house and is willing to buy it today, you in? If you're on
So,
the edge thinking about it, you're in. And then now they're going to go buy. Now you got another buyer out of it, right?
and you
Because you've got
definitely
that
have to
deal.
take a new twist on this because this move is as old as time,
Yeah.
right? Like I have clients that call me all the time and they're like, "Yeah, I just got a letter in my mailbox. Someone has a buyer and they're in my
Right.
neighborhood right now." So
Yeah.
obviously the effect works, but
So
in most cases
I
it's
learned this lesson very quickly when I was selling because I picked up a listing door knocking and then literally I like signed it and then actually got lucky. One of my other buyers wanted it. And we were actually able to like I actually between like when I signed the paperwork to go on MLS, submitted it to my office and it going on MLS, I actually sold it to my own client. Like it was one of those ones
amazing.
where it's like sold before servicing, I think is what they called it. But the sign still went up because it was like the conditional period and picked up another buyer. And then I remember us knocking on the neighbor's doors being like, just sold that, I got a buyer. And the guy's response was, um, oh, I have an agent already. I don't need you. And I was like, great. Can I have your agent's name? Or like, here's my card you can give to them. And I can even like I won't even have to talk to you. I'll deal directly with them. Like, and if you don't have their card, just literally give me their name. I can get their contact information and I'll just go deal. And he just goes, oh, you're not full of shit. Come in.
Mm,
Because like a lot of people know
it
that
was a
like
filter.
I remember one time my parents got a it was an amazing voicemail. And I had like 6 months into getting my license, and it was like a thick accented guy just being like, I have many rich Russian friends. They're looking to buy in your neighborhood. Call me back. I have rich Russian family for you. And my parents are like, oh, all right. And it was like, I looked him up, like legit big agent in the area. And so I called and I was like, they're like, well, for the right person at the right price, sure, we'd sell. And whenever I called them up, and I'll admire the balls. I was like, you called my parents' house. I'm an agent with this brokerage. They said you had a buyer looking at their home. They asked me just to follow up with you and see if I could facilitate a deal. And I'll give him credit. His pitch to me was, well, let's co-list your parents' house together. I was like, so you don't have a buyer. You have no rich Russian family.
No.
So like, but people see that. So like when I started doing it is I would come with my clients, John and Sarah, young family. They're looking to move on to this street. The reason they want this street is X, Y, and Z. And it's something that they've been looking for. So I'm on their behalf coming around to all the people in this neighborhood and seeing if you've heard of any neighbors who'd be considering selling because they'd love to raise their family on this street. Right. And it's like you're giving the specific details of them to like make it more believable. It's like a review is more believable if you have numbers in it. The more like irrefutable facts. Like if I'm just like, oh, I have rich Russian families, you'd be like, yeah, I put it a new added a newspaper that rich Russian families read. And I'm like, yeah, but I could do that too. But if like I actually have John and Sarah here, and like I would do as much personalization of that as for two parts. One, what I'm allowed to do from like a legal perspective, because I know, especially if you're watching this from the US, there's more fair housing around buyer letters, stuff like that. Um, there's that part of it. And then there's also the how much are they willing to let me say about them publicly, right?
Hmm.
Because some people are very, very private and they want it to be more vague 'cause they don't want them to know. Like if they would let me put a picture of them and their kids with a handwritten note from them with instructions of how to reach me, I would go hand deliver that to every house they're interested in,
Hmm.
right? And it's like if that's like the ideal is like them saying it, like I would even do a on like the digital side, I'd film a video with them in it where I would talk to them about the type of home they want and what they're looking for, and then hyper target that ad to those neighborhoods and be like, this is what we're looking like, treat it like you got a listing. So think about if we had a listing, how do we generate hype? How do we find the right buyer for it? Let's just reverse that and say, all right, the buyer's what everyone wants. Let's generate that. Hey, we just signed a deal with a buyer who's looking for a home in this part of town. Um, Shoot me a message if you have a home that, is in that part of town. I'll let you know if it might be for them. And then you have the launch day and you do like, all right, I got buyers, I'm taking out this weekend for 10 homes. If you want your home to be on that list, reach out to us and I'll add your home to the list if it's a good fit for them. Right? You start kind of taking that same approach of I have this asset that you want of buyers for your home. You got to reach out to me for them to consider yours.
Hmm. So I like that because now you're looking at like working with buyers to get more opportunities. Real estate is a contact sport,
Yeah.
tons of contacts and a higher value of contacts here.
No.
When we kind of circle back, when we're talking about finding buyers, we can take a look at your performance with buyers and being able to market that so that you can find other buyers, but really just calling out the things that they're worried about. So I would really, in a down market, focus on how to avoid paying too much.
No.
So if we were to use some of the same techniques we've been using in reverse in my hot market and say like, okay, so I'm in a buyer's market and I know that I can either find listings that are going to be actual good opportunities because they're going to be people that are either moving up and they respond to me talking about being a buyer in a buyer's market and moving up from there, or they're going to be people that need to sell and we're going to be approaching with a price strategy that reveals the highest price the market will pay, but we're going to do that in a 30-day period. We are going to do every single thing. And even if we have to lower your price below what you would actually want to sell for in order to see what an offer is, you just want to know where it's at, right? Because if the offers are too low, you can either just sit up priced high and wait for your listing to expire with no data, Or you could dig into the market, find what you could actually sell it for. And if you don't want to do that, then, that's something that we could kind of pack up. But I really think that that should be the job every time is how do we basically get in position to get an offer and then
Yeah.
help you see where the market is related to you. But let's circle back a little bit. So if we're using that voice of customer and buyers are worried about paying too much, and then the other thing is obviously there's too many houses to buy. So how do you buy the right ones? I revealing that to prospective buyers might actually be the thing that kind of attracts people to your newsletter, to the way that you're going to get more contact from them.
Yeah.
So how do we package that up? Like if we're starting a newsletter that's kind of like the reverse of my insiders and it's going to be addressing the issues of buyers so that we can find those qualified buyers, where do we
Yeah.
start?
So the first thing is you got to think about is how do you get that list of buyers, right? Like before you have something to advertise to them, you got to at least have some people you're going to be sending it to. So then you want to think of what are those like perfect homes that they might want? Like when you again knowing your clients, like because even if the market's flooded with listings, there's still that one like that limited perfect thing that everybody wants, right? Like that move-in ready, big yard, quiet court. Like again, if you're dealing with families in certain areas, like that's a very desirable thing. And or like in a different area, maybe that's like waterfront homes, right? Like, oh, this could be your opportunity to like move up to a waterfront home and save a little money on it. So, or I mean, I'm not a big fan of these ads because they never worked well for me from a conversion standpoint. But like in a market like this, foreclosure properties where you can like really get a deal, power of sales, things like that. It's like, can we get them something that is really desirable to them, either because the price is going to be so low or it's like the perfect home. So
So
you
that
get
might be it,
them, yeah,
is how to see real estate like a pro. So, because in this market, you may be able to afford the best of everything. So, this is what it actually looks like.
no,
Breaking down locations. So, obviously, this neighborhood is the best neighborhood in its surrounding neighborhoods.
yeah,
And then in this neighborhood, the best position is backing onto water with south facing backyard,
yeah.
right?
And then,
Or it could be, but it also has to be a house that has this many bedrooms, in order to like have that status here.
yeah. And then what I would look at is once okay, I have this thing to start getting these buyers on my list of like I have interested people. I am then just going to advertise to those areas that I have people and what they're looking for. But I'm going to be as specific as I can so that it's believable. Because that's the biggest thing, right? Like just the general I have buyers, people just assume it's full of it most of the time. But it's if
Hmm.
you can come in, like if I could run an ad to an area, like if I'm thinking like even my neighborhood, like there's a bunch of homes that back onto a ravine. And that's like my wife and I have joked like we would move, but it'd be just like to that street right there because it's like our house just on the ravine. Right?
Yeah.
Like that type
So the
of
only thing you would change is your location. The
yeah,
characteristics and condition of your
but
house is
only slightly.
work.
Yeah. And because there are things like that, but it's mad like if I all of a sudden saw someone and I knew like they will go and find that for me because like I'm gonna play on that. Can we will go and find that home for you because right now a lot of sellers are sitting on the sideline worried. So I'm going to find those sideline sitters and get them in the game.
Hmm.
And it's like that. So when they join the list, I'm going to get that buyer to tell me everything they want in their perfect home. Like describe your dream home to me.
So we keep converting from talking about buyers to going to get listings. And I want to kind of stay in that, like developing that buyer newsletter to get those qualified buyers, because in a
Yeah.
buyer's market, that should be almost three-quarters of your business.
But so the pitch to it is essentially like we're going to find those homes that are sitting on the sidelines right now. That's like your perfect home. Because like you like I'm saying like you're the buyer.
Why do we need to
You
find houses that are sitting on the sidelines
well
when
we might find them that
everything
house
that's
that's on
ever
the
been
market.
listed is on the market right now?
But they've probably already looked, right? Like they're looked on the market. So the pitch here is like because they're worried about missing out on that perfect home because there's so much choice.
And I think that
And
in buyers markets, what they were telling me is they're not worried about missing the one. The
yeah,
one shows up 6 times a week. They are worried about paying too much.
yeah.
And that's where I would kind of lean in maybe in a different direction.
So paying too much on the host. So then you're getting into a slightly different, or it's like paying too much because the market's going down. Then like if you're going by price, you can go into the power of sale stuff, which if you want, I'm not a big fan of
Most
that.
buyers are not a good fit for
No.
judicial sales or foreclosures, the way that they're run in most provinces in Canada.
Yeah, it's not actually a great deal, which you can then explain to them once they get
So
on the
you could use
list.
that as bait. So this might be how you start your list is
Yeah.
to say, let's talk judicial sales, but the curve or the twist will be kind of saying why they're not for everybody.
Yeah. This
And then,
might be for you if, but describe your perfect home and I'll get it for you.
yeah. And then imagine that like you're in a car lot and they just have every car in every color, right? How do
Yeah.
you choose? And that's really what they need help with is saying, like, listen, in a market like this, you should never be settling for a poor location. Backing onto roads, buying a house in a family neighborhood that's only got two bedrooms upstairs. These are outright mistakes. The other thing is how do you choose? How do you reveal the houses that can actually sell at market value when almost everything is overpriced? And you know
Yeah.
how you know it's overpriced? There's no buyers. As soon as it's been on the market for 2 weeks, I don't care how long the average days in your market is.
Yeah.
You are very likely overpriced
But if you
because
want to get
buyers understand how
more,
to recognize that to some
so,
extent.
so back to the off-market listing thing, because they're on the sidelines. How do you generate more buyers in a buyer's market?
Show them how to overcome the fear.
Sell their house,
Mm,
right? Because now they have to move. Now
I
you have a
like that
qualified
angle.
buyer, right? Like that's what we're trying. Like that's who has to move. Like you're guaranteed they have a move now if you can get them to sell their home. But if
What are
they're
other things
listed,
that
they're already
create
with an
hard
agent.
dates?
Death doesn't have a hard date. The state can go a while. Um, all right, I think like that's actually the best thing because like if we're thinking about if we can sell the off-market homes, the people listed on the market also are going to probably use that agent for the buyer. So I have no opportunity for more clients there. I specifically want my buyers to go off market.
hmm So you could basically turn qualified buyers out of those great filtered listing presentations.
Yep.
I think you can also find qualified buyers based on the school year. So kids
Yep.
have to be registered in school by a certain time. I know some people think they missed the bus, but all you need is a purchase agreement for a house in that catchment
Yep.
area, and you can go
Yep.
in and help and register for school.
Yep.
So that would be something that might help you reveal. Like you could say, like here's a list of my top 10 picks for houses in this school catchment area
Yep.
and then tell them that all you need is a signed agreement before September, and this is
Yep.
something where you could register.
Yeah. So the other, I mean, I'm trying to think of other scenarios where someone has to buy. Because like
Hmm.
has to sell is very different than has to buy.
Yes.
Because there's always the option to rent.
Uh,
Almost
is
always.
there though? So, like, have you ever talked about your family going into a rental?
Yeah. I don't
Could be
want
because you're
to.
open-minded, but I think that if I talk to most families about, hey, let's just rock a rental for a while, they would look at me like I had two heads.
Yeah, most don't want to because it's a pain. But we're still like what I'm thinking about is like who are the must buys,
Hmm.
right? Like and even I guess if someone sold their home, they
So
could still
job
rent.
transfer,
Yeah. So like
those
military
are probably
transfer.
must buys. So
Yeah.
military is one of them, but if you're
Yeah.
affiliated with any relocation,
Yeah.
if you're in an area like Kitchener Waterloo, you probably understand the corporations are funding that market. And so getting into that flow somewhere is going to be key.
Yeah. I do any
And
lunch
then
and
if you
learn with
know
the
the
companies I could.
corporation, you can do things like calculate commute time and say,
Yeah.
hey, these are the 10 best purchases in a 20-minute commute radius from this
Yeah.
headquarters.
Yeah. Well, it's like I spoke to someone who did this for a sports team where they basically got in with like the travel manager of the team. And every time there was a trade, part of that process was, and here's our sales rep. for your house.
Hmm.
And they'll talk to you about whether you should rent buy. Because like what ends up happening if they don't do that is like you'll get guys who live in a hotel for 6 months.
I hear you.
And
And that's actually
yeah,
what Anne is talking about. Anne, can you tell us where you're from? So Anne Sharf is saying that some military are choosing to rent instead of buying this year.
no,
That's understandable, right?
yeah. But I
But how
think it's
many of them are doing that because they're afraid? So is this a good idea for everybody? I don't think it's universally a good idea. I think
no,
that if you were like a single guy in the military and you got transferred, that renting is a good move for you. But I think that with others, it might be a situation where it's the school zone, it's other factors that would cause them to purchase.
no,
But talking to them about the fear is a big part of it. Going in and saying, hey, listen, I could understand why you were looking to rent, or even running rental ads, or even running like ads that say, would you really rent when there's this many buying opportunities in this area?
no. But I don't. Yeah, like I would be and this one we'd have to do the research on, and it'd be so area specific and situate like how many people would actually consider renting versus buying. I'd actually be very curious what the data shows on that.
Hmm.
Because I think that would also could be one that's very regional and demographic different. Like it could change dramatically area to area. Whereas some things are like a little bit more universal. I think that would be a big one. Like I bet the more like suburban you go, the less willing to do big rentals.
Absolutely. And also there's
Yeah.
other factors.
Yeah.
So there's the obvious factors of home ownership, of
Yeah.
the opportunity for appreciation or
Control
depreciation.
with the kids.
But then there's other elements, which is not being disrupted. So, like if your landlord
Yeah.
wants to sell, that's going to be how it goes, whether it's the middle of the school year, the middle of winter, you're financially set up for the next step or not, right? That
Yeah.
is something that normally causes families a lot of grief because if their relocation requires the kids to change schools, this is actually like could be a TSN turning point for their experience overall.
Yeah. And that's where, again, going back to how do we create people who have to buy, like families getting their house sold, then they got to buy. And it's back to the off market. I think it's just flipping the off market opportunity to the buyer side
Mm.
is probably the best
Yeah,
way.
and I wonder about that because the off-market opportunities has not been something that I've found was attractive in a buyer's market because like everything was on market. In
Yeah.
fact, one of the things that I was trying to solve in my buyer's market was how to help buyers overcome the paradox of choice.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the secretary paradox?
I'm not sure.
Okay, you're hiring an assistant for your business, and then you put out an ad and you write it well, right? So you end up like with kind of a filtered group, but that group is still stupid large. So you get 100 applicants. How many do you interview?
Yeah.
Like, what if the best one is the 98th one in a row? That's how a lot of buyers are feeling when the market is overflowing with options.
Yeah.
So in the secretary paradox, they talk about having a sample size. And so what you should be looking to do is trying to find some way to filter so that you can, like in this particular example with 100 and related to secretaries, the answer is 37. And normally the answer is roughly 37%. So you can't extrapolate this to other things.
Yeah.
But then the idea would be is once you've interviewed 37 applicants, you essentially should just like have an average and the next person that's over average, you should hire them. So
Yeah.
it's a way to kind of cut down choices,
I have heard of
especially
that.
when it's important.
Yeah. It's like so like even if we're doing the like they're just going to buy on the market because real estate might be, I would still send the off market listing or this off market letters. Because again, I'm trying to drive more buyers. And if I can get someone
Mhm.
to sell their home, they're going to buy.
Yep, I agree. So that would be
It's
part of that multiplier. So you're
yeah,
going to use your buyers to essentially find somebody that will sell to buy with you.
like think about how much you spend on a listing. You're flipping that spend onto the buy side now. You're investing in this asset you have, which is the buyer, and promoting it to get more clients out of it.
I think we should definitely continue this conversation,
Yeah.
especially with that, because that's a great way to close this episode is to say, like, you know what? Look at buyers like they are listing opportunities. Let's work into this multiplier where we can duplicate the buyers that are going to result in great transactions and also work with their friends.
Yeah.
And let's change the game. You know, the buyers are the most valuable client in a buyer's market. So where can we put those forth? Because really, it should be more than 50% of your business if you are in a buyer's market, it should be buyers because the listings are unpredictable.
Agreed. That was a good chat. We're gonna
Yeah,
stick
thank you,
around.
man.
Can't stick around too long today for the after show because I do have to get downtown Toronto for a client's town hall meeting with their staff. Because I'm going down to talk to them about what we're doing with their marketing. Um, and it's downtown. I could be there in 45 minutes. It might be 2 hours. So,
Yeah, that's something that's definitely different. So we'll close off this
lovely.
episode, but we do go to the after show, which is here for the people that are in attendance right now. So we're going to keep talking to those folks, but for you other folks, we'll see you maybe next time. Maybe you will be able to join us live.